Put walls between urinals. Why is that
Come on.
That's so weird. There should be tiny little walls. Skinny
Between
little
the
walls.
balls.
It wouldn't.
Hashtag walls between the balls.
That's good.
Yes.
That is good. I'll give it to you.
I could be president.
Balls to the walls.
Oh, nice. Damn, if you were running against me and you used that.
To the window, to the wall,
Oh my
to the wall.
Till there's
To the wall,
walls
to the
in
wall,
these.
to the wall between the balls.
Till we're making walls for stalls.
There need to be there has to be some kind of separation. In some
places there
who
is.
needs it? No, who needs it? Like, we can't be bothered to put up some plywood.
There's definitely walls in some places.
Okay. But why not
But sometimes they're not tall enough, and you're pretty sure someone can just be like.
If there's half a wall, then you're even more intrigued to be like, can I see over that wall?
Well,
Yeah.
the weird part is
That's where stage
they
fright
put
comes
it from shoulders down. Why would they not be putting it up?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Like,
why
start
wouldn't
at
they
the
have it?
kneecap and up instead
Yeah,
of
start at
shoulders
the
down.
kneecap, like a middle of the wall. Kneecap to shoulder,
I'm
kneecap to
picturing-
We're not asking for a lot.
I'm now picturing a stall situation in a bathroom. It's like you see the person's face.
That's fine.
You see their dick.
At least you wouldn't know that anyone's looking at it. I
There's
guess.
still a little bit of anonymity.
Oh.
No, I
Anonymity?
feel like it needs anonymity. I think, right?
An anemone
Anemone.
Sure.
where Nemo lives.
Yeah, that's all we're asking for.
Yeah. Put those things in between
The stalls.
in between
Anything, really.
urinals. Yeah. So you
Urinal
get
walls
stung.
2024. Let's make it happen.
Yeah. So that way, if you get if you try to reach for the person's penis next to you, you get shocked by the anemone.
Yeah, they can put up those fences that keep dogs from running out the like the
Oh my God,
invisible
no.
fences.
You have to put on a collar before you go to the bathroom.
We're just trying to keep young boys safe.
Invisible fence wouldn't do anything.
But if you look over either way, you get shocked. So if you see
You
someone
just keep-
jump,
you
you
just
know
have to
that
be
someone's
looking
being
straight
extra nosy.
You know
Yeah.
that they were trying to look at the
Yes.
person's penis
Or an
next to them.
ink blot like sprays them in the face.
Oh my gosh! Like they tried to steal something from a store.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
That
They
is-
just
Yes.
And then
you
they
look
come out
over
of,
and it's like, psst.
they come out of the bathroom, and then everyone
Yeah,
knows for the
exactly.
rest of the day.
See, I was going somewhere with the fence.
Wow, that's good. But you
Yeah.
see a couple people. One has ink all over their face. Another one has ink stains around their dick. And you're like,
Because they were like, it was worth it.
hold on. Wait a second. Yeah.
Speaking of ink stains around your dick, adult friendship.
You ever have a friend who's kind of like that ink stain around your dick? They're hanging around a little too long. You're not really sure how to communicate with them anymore. Because,
Honestly, same.
honestly, same.
Ooh, honestly, same.
Honestly, same.
Honestly, same.
Honestly, same.
same.
Honestly, same. Honestly, same.
Honestly, same.
Honestly, same.
Honestly, same.
I don't even want to be part of that. I feel really.
She didn't co-sign on that
Yeah,
one.
I wasn't prepared.
Speaking of ink stains around your dick.
Oh,
So that's
good times.
not the intro, is what you're telling me.
Dink stains.
Oh, you need to clap.
I did clap.
I don't know where I was.
You were entering the urinal talk.
Right.
Yeah, you were like about to fire it up. So if we're not using the dink stain intro,
Okay.
which is still yet to be determined because I will be editing this,
Yeah.
so it's gonna be in there one way or the other. It's just either is it the only intro or is it like
Is it a side piece?
yeah?
Is it dink stain a side piece or not?
How
Or is
would
it the
we?
full package?
How, I don't know. I can't get out of dink mode. How are we gonna transition?
It's hard
here?
to wash it off. That's the whole point.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's very true.
Speaking of washing off your dink, do you have a friend who you're unsure of their dink washing methods and you're unsure of how to bring it up to them?
Cut.
Your dink stink, bro.
Dink
Cut.
stink or steak?
Stink.
Dink steak.
Dink stink. Oh no.
Your dink stank.
We're just
bro.
spiraling out of control.
Yeah, we can do this. We can do
We
this.
can't do this.
All right.
It's been a little bit.
All right.
We were all sick. Okay.
We are 6 seasons into this show. We can do it.
I am 42 years old.
You look good. You look good, kid. All right. Well,
What a nice thing to say to your friend, to tell them that they look good and remind them and stuff.
I try to keep open communication in my friendships.
That's a very adult thing to do.
Honestly,
in your
same.
friendships.
That's it.
Yeah, Ross, you really
That's
dropped
what
the ball on
Oh,
that one.
shit.
Dance, Ross.
Oh,
It's a little late.
don't you think? Don't you dink? Oh, wait, whoops. Okay, that was earlier. Dang it. Okay. Back into
Okay.
podcast mode. So, was that our intro?
Are we friends?
I'd like to think so.
Yes.
Honestly, same.
Good. That's the intro.
That's a nice test that we just passed. Incredible. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hello. Welcome to the show. This is Honestly
man.
Same. We are a group of very, very close friends who all happen to be adults, which is what we're going to be talking about today. But who are we? Well, I'm Ross.
I'm Brittany.
I'm Leah.
I'm glad that you didn't say I'm Leah like that one time, because now that's been stuck in my head ever since.
I
that
learned
was-
my lesson. I've had a couple nightmares about it.
I forgot.
Leah's like,
She's
oh,
like
you were
trying
me?
to steal my identity, and I'm like, that's fine.
What if I was just like, what are you talking about, Brittany?
Oh.
I took my glasses off.
She came in with her hair dyed black
Yeah.
and was just like, excuse me.
I'm Leah, and Ross, you miss Christmas. So
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you
Way
don't
to
know
be a
what's going
friend.
on. Friends. Wow.
Guys.
Let's talk about some friendships.
Yeah.
I think we should start a little bit with the difference between childhood friendships and adult friendships, kind of the good and bad of both.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So
So go ahead with that.
Yeah, great.
I'm gonna get my list out because I haven't
just
done
the
that
beauty,
yet.
not the brains here. Okay.
Which one am I?
The brawn.
The dink.
I'm like, you're the one that tightened this so much that I couldn't move it. So the brawn.
A strong dink is what I
goodness.
am. I appreciate that. Anyway, Brittany, I think you were about to begin talking about our actual subject for this episode.
I was gonna try. So as far as I really am gonna try.
Yeah, let's try.
As far as I kind of want to talk about like the good and the things that stay the same between like childhood friendships and adult friendships, because we'll get into a lot of the differences, obviously, going more into adult friendships. So for me, the same thing with adult friendships in children friendships is the friends that I have from childhood, we laugh the same we did when we were kids. Like we bring out that same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is like the innocence. There's not a lot of like, you can talk about the hard stuff with those friends, but you always end up like giggling about other things.
Yeah.
And you have to build that with adult friends that you meet in adulthood.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, like, also a difference between, like, maybe childhood friendships that you had that didn't make it to adulthood. Like, there is that innocence factor of, like, just being, like, silly and just doing stuff that, like, you're not worried about being judged for, like, acting a certain way or doing some, like, weird voice or, like, you know, being erratic in some way, because back then you're like, it doesn't matter if I'm annoying, everybody's annoying.
Yeah, and there's a lot more like forgiveness in childhood friendships over adult friendships.
Whereas like in adulthood, it's like people have been through so much that like you're like, if I go like this, I do like a super little, if I like start pulling out my weird, like is somebody gonna be like, oh, okay, like you're yeah, not for me.
Yeah.
I feel like as adults, like meeting somebody in adulthood, you have to like almost like approach with caution, because they've seen some shit. We've all seen some shit, and how we react to each other's shit is also like so different versus like, I'm a kid and I like rocks, and they're like, I like rocks too, and we're all friends now.
Yep. And you're like, we're not friends, and then at lunch you're like friends again. No talk about
you
it.
have no
just-
memory of
You
yeah.
just
It's
are
under
like,
the rug.
but can I have your Oreo? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's way more filters up as an adult, right?
Yeah.
Because you're like, okay, I've been annoyed by this thing, or, oh, you've got that trait that I realize that I don't really like, and I can still be nice to you.
Yeah.
But I don't really know if I want to build a friendship out of this. And like when we were talking about the childhood friendship thing, like there are definitely people who I was friends with as a kid who I'm still like somewhat in contact with here and there, like nowadays. But when I'm actually trying to think about it, I don't know if I actually have any still like childhood close friends.
Like close friends?
Like in comparison to like, oh, we were this close when we were kids and then it maintained and now we're this close as adults still. I feel like unless I'm really forgetting someone, and I really hope you're not watching or listening to this, and
they're like,
realizing,
wow,
Ross.
Ross,
That we're
Ross,
not
I was
that
going to
close.
ask you to be my best man at my wedding.
but because like a lot of the people that I can think of in that context were more like, I guess maybe teenage friendships count somewhat, but it was like 17, 18, like that sort of thing. Like when I think of like childhood friendship, I don't actually really think
I think that part of it too, like, do you have any like close family? Like when I think of like childhood friendships, I also think of like my cousins. Like those were like my best friends when I was a kid, and we were like really, really close. And now as adults, we're like, so you like bread?
Carbs, am I right?
Do you eat? I eat sometimes. You know, it's like hard to even like relate, especially like when you had that closeness as a kid, and then like you're drift
so
apart.
vulnerable as a kid, so then it's almost weird when you don't know them in the same way anymore.
Yeah, well, and especially with family, you kind of get put into those situations where you're like, I'm gonna see this person.
Yeah.
Well,
but like
I think people also, I mean, this is probably a whole other episode thing, but it's like when everybody grows up, people tend to use like the childlike wonder and the excitement and the energy and like, because like you were saying earlier, like everybody's seen some shit and everyone's experienced some shit, and it's like, and I don't mean for this to sound negative, but it's like everybody gets like drained because of like life experiences and stuff, which ultimately like is going to happen to everybody.
You become jaded.
Yeah, but at the same time,
in the same vein as that, that's why I am very careful with who like I allow to be my friend, because if you're gonna add to the drainage,
exactly,
it's not always worth like keeping up with that friendship.
Yeah, and I don't think it's like those sort of things. I think everyone loses that childlike wonder. So then, like, yes, when you're a kid, of course, there's less filters. We don't know what the world is like. We're just talking to everybody, and you know, whatever.
I think my problem is I never like really lost my childhood wonder. So like it's taken me until literally like the last maybe couple of years to like filter people out and be like, oh, this is a person that like I can enjoy from like an arm's length, you know, like I can have this person around, but I can't like spend like time pouring into them, and like an actual friendship.
That's like actually exactly what I was about to say, is like I
read your mind
because you had mentioned like what it's like keeping up with like even like cousins or family, or but then you realize you're kind of different than people or whatever, and it's like that is the main difference that I feel like I feel with all these people, is that I haven't necessarily lost that childlike wonder, or like I've learned how to tap back into like, oh, I like getting to know people. I want to talk about the silly things that sometimes people don't want to talk. I want to be like, how was your week? But really, how was your week? And what do you want to do? And what excites you? And blah, blah, blah. And the whole point of like the childlike wonder thing was most people don't think that way anymore. And they don't want to converse that way. If I'm being honest, like most of the time, it is a lot more of like, did my sports team win or lose? Does my job suck, or is it cool?
Or a shit talking session.
Where we're just going to like, can you believe so? And so like, and I'm not saying that's every single case, but I do think that that's more often than not. So then you get into those scenarios where, at least for me, if it's childhood friends or family or whatever it is, I am like, I kind of don't know what connection to make here, because then when you start, like I can think back to a couple years ago, and this is somebody that I'm still like friends with. We talk only a couple times a year, but I had a friend from my hometown actually visit up here in Columbus, and our hangout was kind of weird. Like I was looking for those like sparks of like, it's still us, but like it was like it's adult us, and
we have to work a little harder at it. We didn't
know how to converse anymore, because like I would ask certain things and it would just sort of be like a general vague answer, and I'm like, okay, we're not really going anywhere with this. But then when he would ask me stuff, I'm like, well, I don't know how to actually explain this to you, because you know what I mean? I can't just walk you through like, well, creatively, this is what's going on and blah, 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 because the answer is just going to be nice, man. That's cool. So stoked for you.
Yeah.
And so there's all these walls that then get put up where it's like, when you're a kid, those walls aren't there. There's less filters. Yes, as adults, it makes sense for us to begin filtering friendships out, potential friendships of like, is this person actually good for me? Are they going to just bring the drama? Are they going to bring annoyances? Are they going to, you know, whatever it is?
Why'd you point at me when you said annoyances?
I'm the drama.
Yeah, you're the drama, I guess.
I'm listing the things that you guys brought up. So I'm presenting back to Brittany, you brought this up. Leah, you brought this up. What?
No,
yeah,
that's
actually,
Leah.
this
I'm
is
Brittany.
Yeah.
Oh
come
yeah,
on.
yeah, Leah.
What a
and
good
then
friend.
You're replica Brittany, is what you are.
Hi. Oh, sorry. Hi.
Now. Perfect.
Hi.
But I think that like that's the thing. It's like I've experienced that firsthand, where it's like I know how I want to connect and build adult friendships, which now like making new friends, it's like, okay, I know what my filters are. I know what my steps are. I know what's going to dictate like yes or no, this person is going to be a good friend to me, or whatever it is. Like this is going to be a good connection.
Yeah.
Knowing that now, I don't think a lot of people learn to identify those things. And it just kind of becomes like,
I'm still working on that. Like 100%. Like my friend, she was like, you always pick up these strays, because I'm the person that like, when somebody is like in need of a friend, somehow I just pick them up and I'm like, let me put you all back together.
that makes sense.
And I remember in like specific instances where like there were people that I felt, I feel like maybe this was just me being like self-centered in a way of like feeling like they need me. And they were leeching off of me in a way that like, I was just like, no, I'm really helping them. And then I'd be driving 2 hours to help them do something when, they would not do the same to me, or like, something like that.
Or they're just they start to expect that of you.
Yeah.
And so it's a one-sided thing where you're like, you might as well be their mom.
Yeah. I had a girl that one time, like, she was like, well, I want to hang out, but we can't hang out at my house. And I'm like, you live 2 hours away. So I had to go pick her up because she didn't drive. And you're making that face because you know who I'm talking about.
Yo, do I?
Yeah.
I do.
You know who I'm talking about. Which, like, at the time I was just like, yeah, like, no problem, whatever. But then, like, it would just be like anytime there was something where I'd be like, hey, do you want to help me do this? It was like, well, yeah, if you want to like pay me for it.
Yeah.
Or like, yeah, if you want, if I get something out of it.
Because
and I'm
you
like,
can have those
wow.
things where it's like, I'm going to make this 4-hour back and forth drive, 3-hour, 6-hour back and forth drive for you.
Yeah.
If she was like, hey, every night that I'm with you, I need to buy your dinner and X, Y, and Z. And when you're doing this project, please let me know. I'm going to make my way up. I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah. And it's like, I've always just been that person where I'm like, oh, like people, like I would be friends with anyone, and I would like be the kind of person that's going to be, I'm like 0 or 100, you know what I mean? So I'm like putting 100% of effort into my friendships, and I'm getting back like maybe like 15%. And so I've just like in the last, honestly, like the last like year and a half, I've been like kind of doing that thing where like, all right, you know what? I'm going to wait. I'm not going to text first for, and then the amount of people that have just disappeared from my life because I'm not the one reaching out. Yep. It's insane.
I wonder how many people have done that experiment on me, because I'm very, very bad at reaching out. That's something that I'm bad at.
There's differences though, because you could also like reach out later and be like, hey, I've been meaning to
kind
catch
of
up
acknowledge
with you.
it when
like,
it's time.
Yeah. But it's like, there are people where I'm literally like, I reach out every single time, and eventually it gets to a point where like, we're just not talking anymore because it was so one-sided that I was reaching out constantly and just getting back like, oh yeah, the minimum. Oh yeah, this is what's going on in my life. Not asking what's going on in my, those types of things. And I've gotten to a point now where I have to protect my like mental health and my emotional health. And it's taken me literally 30 years to get there to be like, oh yeah, I should be worried about me a little bit more. Yeah. So like when it comes to adult friendships, like the filtering aspect of it is so much more important versus like when you're a kid. Like I said, you can just walk up and be like, hey, I like that rock you have.
You
Can
love
I see
rocks,
that rock?
Leah.
I'm just thinking about what kids do,
They
kids
do,
like
they
rocks.
do.
Yeah, yeah.
Nick likes rocks,
Well, perfect match over there.
We're just having lots of rocks at our house.
Well, like obviously, I think we also touched on some of this stuff, definitely in like other episodes, like the toxicity episode and all that sort of stuff of like one-way friendships and what you can do to like, hey, I'm really trying to make some effort here, and this person like doesn't really return that. And again, like putting up a lot of these filters is also like, let's talk about setting boundaries, because a lot of this is like
so bad at that.
Are
you bad at that? People pleasing. I feel like boundaries is like
better. I'm getting better, but I am terrible at it. Mainly because there's a lot of animosity between me and people that make me set up boundaries because they're not respecting the friendship to begin with.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
So like boundaries, I feel like if you have a really healthy friendship, boundaries are like unsaid, like unspoken things that are already there. If it's a friendship that you're like, man, we have to work to keep this friendship, I'm usually on the side of like, I'm probably going to step back and this is going to be more of an acquaintanceship or like a very minimal friendship. Because if you're making me set boundaries, you're not listening to what I've been saying or like looking at, like viewing my life or how busy it is or whatever it is.
Or at least like standing in your shoes for a second.
Just for a second, because I'm constantly trying to do that for like whoever's on the other side of it. So boundaries almost put me into a position that if I'm having to set them, and I know that like people can't read my mind, I can't read their mind, but if I'm having to set boundaries, it does put a little bit of a damper on whatever the situation is.
It's never a comfortable experience to have to set boundaries. I'm so bad at I think I mentally set them for myself where I'm like, okay, the next time this person does this thing, like I'm going to say something, but it's the follow through that I struggle with.
Because
it's hard to,
it's hard. This is my least favorite thing about adult friendships. It is, and I've said this probably on the toxicity episode and probably like 10 other episodes. I can't stand to be put in a position where I have to have an uncomfortable conversation with someone, given how they've treated me or other people surrounding me. Like, I just assume when I invite someone into my life that they're a good person, and to find out that they're not, or they're being selfish or whatever, is not a conversation I ever want to have.
Yeah.
They don't happen often. So when I'm put in that position, my body wants to shut down, like my mind goes blank, and it immediately like will render how I feel about you if we have to have like a really tough boundary conversation, especially if someone's not receptive to those boundaries.
Yeah, that makes sense. It definitely, I mean, I feel like I feel very similar where it definitely changes my perspective on that person. I don't know if I like immediately am like,
you're my enemy now.
Yeah, we're never talking. You know,
see, it's way easier for me to just fade away like that Simpsons gif of him just like,
just into the bushes.
Yeah. Because I'll just be like, conflict? No, I'll just fizzle this out.
And I know that a lot of people would be like, that's really selfish and like you clearly didn't care about your friends or whatever. But I would argue that like, and everyone's human, so things happen. But I would argue that I wouldn't be put in the position if you had the same respect for me as I do for you.
See, I will extend the amount that I feel like I should extend. Like personally of like, okay, I'm going to make this much effort to resolve this conflict or to have this weird conversation or to set these boundaries or to whatever. And then I'll see where that person does or does not meet me at.
Yeah. And it should be in the middle.
It should be, right?
It's like, for sure the reception can change everything. It could make me completely forget that it was a thing that we even had to discuss, or it's like, oh, you're going to make this harder on me? Okay, I'm going to Homer Simpson out of here.
Yeah, being an adult and having adult friendships also means having adult conversations, and that might be some conflict resolution and some like weird, awkward, like, okay, I guess we need to talk about, because that stuff, like as a kid, like one, you're not really thinking in that way, like how can I resolve this conflict? It's
no, you're just
wow,
like,
Leah stole my rock and I'm pissed and blah blah blah. You know, it's like
I would never.
Well, you do like them. You do like them a lot.
Yeah, Winry did tell me the other day that her and her friend Olivia weren't friends anymore, and I said why, and she said because she was playing with someone else, and then she said, and then we ate our snack together.
Oh my gosh.
And like that's just all it takes for a kid.
Well, and that's the thing too, is it's like it's so easy for kids to get mad at each other and then make up, whereas it's like when you think about like the ego that we build up in our adult lives as well, because of all the shit that we've seen and then that we've been through, it's almost like for somebody to come to you and say, hey, you crossed this boundary and it made me uncomfortable, and you know that like maybe you didn't want to make somebody uncomfortable and that wasn't your intention, then you become defensive. And then you get these people that are going, well, I wasn't trying to do that.
Have you been on that? Have either of you been on that side, like exclusively, where it's like you've crossed this boundary in friendship, not like in opinions or anything like that, but like in friendship, and then had to remedy it? I've never been on that side of a friendship, and I think that's why I'm so jaded in the way that I react to when that happens to me.
Right. I don't feel like I've ever been the person that was like, no, this is like, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. You know what I mean? Because I'm the one that's constantly thinking of other people's feelings too much, to a fault. Yeah. So I'm saying from the other side of it, it's like you get these people that get defensive because they're like, well, I never meant to do that. Like, of course I care about you. And in their mind, that was not, their intent, but you don't get to decide when you hurt somebody else. And I'm not going to say who that quote is by because we hate him, but truly it's like, even if you didn't mean to do it, you still like, you didn't mean to hurt somebody, but you hurt somebody. So even if you're going to say, that's not what I meant to happen, start with a sorry. Like we are so egotistical in friendships as adults. Whereas like when we're kids, if you're just like, hey, that hurt my feelings, then you just go, oh, sorry, because you're watching shows that teach you that. And you have parents that are going, no, you did that to someone. Now you go apologize, because it's like kind of pounded into your brain. And then as you get older, the autonomy of just like, no, this is just how I handle stuff comes into play. And you start feeling like you don't have to apologize because that's just how you are.
Right.
Oh my God.
I'm using air quotes in case you're not like
aggressive
watching.
bluntness
Oh my
is
gosh.
my enemy.
There's nothing like there are people that are just like, oh, I'm brutally honest. I'm
No.
like, you're a
you
bitch. Never have to be brutal when you're being honest. Like
No.
there are a million different routes of honesty that you can take without being a complete like asshole about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I tend to be pretty direct.
I think there's a difference, between like directness, like because it benefits the person, and saying hurtful things in the name of brutal honesty.
And that's like, that's the thing. Is like, I tend to be pretty direct, where I can just be like, no, this is actually what I think, and this is actually what I'm seeing, or this is actually, my point of view, whatever it is. But it's never in the realm of like, well, I'm just like so brutally honest,
well,
bro.
Sorry
like,
if that hurt your feelings.
I don't know if you can take it, but like rocks are dumb, Leah. Like, sorry.
Yeah, like maybe be a little less sensitive. How about that?
But even on like the point of like having to be the person who's like, oh, like did I not hurt your feelings or whatever, like I've noticed like the older I've gotten, like I will actually bring those scenarios up if there's ever a point where I feel like I've become distant with somebody, or our friendship is starting to look a little bit different and I don't want it to. Like, I'll actually present it of like, hey, did anything weird happen here? Or is there something that's like causing this like disconnect? Like, can we talk about it? Like, because I will also just like eat myself alive thinking about those things of like, me and that person haven't talked in months. And I don't know, maybe the last time we hung out was kind of weird. And I don't know. I'd at least like to know, not out of an egotistical way of like, do you hate me? Because I need to know if you think something bad about me. It is more so like, hey, did I do anything wrong, or was I?
That's like
this,
weighing on you.
And it's not like
Yes.
it's not. Do you think bad things about me? It's did
No.
I do something that made you feel bad,
Yes.
like about being around me?
Yes, just this friendship, this whatever. Because if so, this is me offering the platform of like, hey, can we talk about that? Because whatever it is, I hope I didn't mean to do it, and I hope that
and
it
that
didn't.
directness I like. I would love in those scenarios if someone was like, hey, is there anything like you want to talk about? Because I think that things have been a little weird, versus like
Why are you mad at me?
And making you be the person to bring it up. Like just sitting there and pretending everything's fine.
Yes, I can't stand that.
No.
Yeah, and just like waiting until like it boils over, and you're like, I've been needing to talk about this, but it's like,
or just like, hey, I feel like you're being weird, and it's like, could you do a little bit of internal work? Could you investigate why I might before you come and
I'll be honest, like there's been a couple like, and that doesn't happen often, but the couple times it has, like most of the time, like I'm the one that's overthinking. They're like, oh no, life's just been weird and crazy, and actually I'd love to chat and hang out or whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay, that was just me like being worried that like, oh man, do I need to mend a fence here? Do I need to
extend an olive branch for something that I am not aware that I did?
Yeah, and it's like, it's not that like, oh yeah, when I told that person to fuck off, I wonder if that hurt. There's like, there's never an example like that. You know what I mean? It's like, is there something hidden that I don't know that? Because miscommunication is very easy as people in general, especially as adults. It's like we talked about earlier, a lot of people just they're not direct. They're not like super transparent with their emotions, or they're too transparent, and that's when they're like, I'm just brutally honest. Like, I'm just like a dick. It's cool. Like,
this is just how I am.
Yeah. And so it's like a lot of the times people are not actually talking about what emotions they're feeling. They're not actually talking about like, hey, I gotta be honest with you. The last time we hung out, it was like kind of weird, and here's why. Like, that's not me saying I hate you. It's not me attacking you. It's not me saying like,
because I care about you, I want to tell you that I felt this way about what happened or whatever.
And I think that those things are like vastly important. Something I would like to kind of dive back into is like, when you guys think of setting boundaries as adults, what are those boundaries? What are boundaries you've experienced like having to kind of set of like, hey, is it respecting my time? Is it like realizing that like I have like things that I'm actively doing in life, and things get out, like whatever it is, like time can get away from us. Sorry, I didn't talk with you, or like what do those boundaries look like?
I think part of it is just recognizing like there's almost like warning signs of like, we'll call them red flags. We're going to have a whole episode about red flags, which I'm sure we'll get into this in that episode. But like, you almost like, you can almost notice like ahead of time, like, oh, this person doesn't seem like they're gonna understand that like I take this time, you know, from this time to this time, like I am specifically like with my kids and I'm not going to text you back. And I need that space because that's just my life.
Yeah.
You know, you might run into a situation where you can tell like somebody is a lot more, I don't know, like needy of your time, or like you can tell that somebody is a little bit less sensitive to your beliefs or, you know, to your emotions. And I think that like you can get a read on people pretty early on. So for me, like starting a new friendship, I think what matters to me is sort of like you can tell like how they talk about other people in their life is a big one. And I feel like having that filter, I guess I wouldn't say it's a boundary, but like I would say being able to look at those types of things and seeing like where the boundaries are in their life, sort of like how they interact with other people, helps me to realize like how they're going to interact with me and how I need to, because everybody's going to be different. Every relationship's going to be different. For me, I think one of the biggest ones is understanding like I am a sensitive person. I am somebody that I am, you guys know me, and this was a thing this morning. I text back really, really quickly. But if I'm not like immediately responding, like there's a reason for it. I will get back to you.
And give you the space, because if you're not being in that moment how you traditionally are, getting like dog piled on in that moment is so overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, and knowing like that sometimes my emotions can dogpile on me as well. And so that there are times where like you might not hear from me for like a couple of weeks while I'm like either bombarded at work or I have a whole lot of stuff going on with my like mental health or something. And like being able to establish like I'm in the background. Like it doesn't mean I don't care, but I need me time. And that's something that I used to be really bad about, is just if somebody needed something from me, I'd be like, okay, I'm there. I got you. Like I will, you know, and I've learned now that like I have to be there for me more often so that I can be there for other people,
Right.
or else it's only like a half version of me that's actually showing up.
Yeah. And then there's animosity, like, oh, you aren't seeing me for me, so you're asking me again. You're like taking another piece of me and I didn't have it to give.
Yes.
And so now I have this like thing in the back of my head where I'm like, you don't care about me, but I'm going to do this thing for you anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just is going to keep piling.
Yeah. And that's, I think my biggest boundary at the moment is just like, okay, if I'm putting in this much, like I need you to meet me where like, you know, there might be pushback, pullback, whatever. If you need me a little bit more than I need you in that moment and I'm able and willing to do that, that's great. But sometimes it might go the other way, you know, I might need you a little bit more and then I need you to be that person for me sometimes too.
There should be a trade-off. There's no problem with there being a trade-off. And that, like,
that's the point of a friendship.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not always going to be cut and dry. There's not always going to be like a solid middle where we're both putting in the same amount of work necessarily. But I know that there are times that I'm willing to put 110% in if you have 10% less to give. But like, hey, when I'm like, you know, having a bad day or whatever, and I need to just like vent or like whatever, like I need you to also be that person for me, where like you let me just come in, sit down and like lay down my burdens, and vice versa. Like we have those moments. I feel like all of us are really good at that. And there are people that I know in the past I've like accepted into my life where I'll sit there and let them just like kind of put all of their load onto me. And then when it comes back where I need to like let off steam or something like that, it's like they're nowhere to be found. So yeah, I think just for like the sake of summing it up as like a boundary, I would just say like making sure that there's like a give and take, that
an equality in the friendship.
Yeah, it's gotta be a good, like whether it's fluid or whatever, like it has to be equal in some way back and forth.
Yeah.
I have a boundary question. Because I've been put in this position before, and it kind of shows like where boundaries can get a little selfish.
Okay.
When there's like a breakup and then you were friends with both, and then one of them expects you to like drop the other person because you are closer or whatever. For me, I do not have that like boundary. Friendships are different than like whatever your relationship is.
Yeah.
And as far as human autonomy goes, you should respect that.
Don't
each
make me pick a
person-
side.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't
Yes.
make me pick
So
a side.
I'm already telling you guys, my opinion, but my question was how you guys feel about it.
Now, if there's something where like I find out later, like that there was some kind of abuse
If there was a
happening, like
wrongdoing,
if there
that's
was
a totally
something
different
like
subject.
now but then it's also different. Like, okay, so and so cheated on so and so. That's also their personal thing. Like, if he didn't or she didn't, do something that like I look at as like, oh my gosh, they like, I don't know, hit you or like abused you in some way, shape, or form. Like, if you have a bad breakup, like that doesn't mean that erases, it might for you erase everything that's
Right.
happened up to this point, but that doesn't mean it erases my friendship with this person up to this point or my friendship with you up to this point. But like, if there was something where you find out, like if I would think differently if somebody was like, oh, like that person abused me, then
Sure.
I would be like, yes, I'm willing to like cut ties with that person.
Yep.
If I know for sure that it's like truth. But I do feel like, yeah, that's something where like, if you're in the middle of something, it is absolutely not fair for somebody to like put you in the position of like, well, who's your friend now?
Right.
Like,
because you can't have both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've
no,
had that with friendships too. Have you ever had that where you had
Yes, where a
like two friends
friendship
like are
breakup,
not,
yeah.
and then they're like, well, you can't hang out with both of us. Like,
Or they're just going to be super passive aggressive, not communicate. And if they do communicate, I'm going to look at you sideways because my business and who I hang out with is none of your business.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a friend who decided that she did not want to hang out with our other friend anymore, but wouldn't tell that friend. She just was like, I just am like not going to really like spend time with her anymore. And so my other friend and I, so there's four of us. There's one on this side, there's one on this side, and then there's two of us in the middle. And we were like, anytime we did plans with this person, that person didn't know why they weren't invited, or we had to hide that we were even doing
Yeah, it gets
anything.
messy.
And then every time we
Yeah.
hang out with that other person, they're like, oh, why didn't we invite so and so? Well, because so and so doesn't want to hang out with you, and we can't tell you that. Like, that was the hardest thing ever, to be like that was fully on us to handle.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't even tell that person
Yeah,
you didn't want to hang out with them.
Yeah, and it's putting you in this like position where if I were the friend that was getting like ghosted, which that's another question I have after you give your opinion on this boundary, but I would be pissed at you. I would be pissed that I was like a pawn and like you're
Yeah.
cute with this person.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like I haven't really experienced any of that since like high school or maybe early 20,
Yeah.
like that sort of like that phase of anything. Whether it's like a
Because guys,
friendship
first of all,
thing.
guys don't care. Usually they're like, oh, you hung out with him? Cool. And then that's just it.
Yeah.
I think guys are a lot more understanding of that.
Yeah, or just probably. I think in a lot of cases, probably just more blind to anything of just like caring of, you know what I mean? It's just like, whatever. But yes, like the friendship thing or the breakup thing, like yes, if you're in the middle of it, like pretty much just what Leah said is like, unless there's like a thing that is found out of like, oh, that person
Is not a
that's-
good person,
that's what
and
they
I
did.
question why you
Yeah,
are
it-
associating
It
with
doesn't
that.
matter of who's friends with who. My judgment of that person based off of what they did, that's what I'm going off of. It's not for the other party involved of like, oh, well, you guys broke up or you guys aren't friends, so yeah, I'm going to go ahead and pick your side just
Right.
because you told me. It's like, no, if that person did something that is like, I can justify being like, oh, as a person, I don't respect or appreciate what you did, how
They
you treated
gave
the
me the
situation.
dink.
You're getting real dinky over there.
They looked at my dink at the stall. If I don't keep in the stuff we were joking about before we rolled this episode, none of those jokes are going to make any
We will
sense.
put it on the Instagram
It'll
what
be
the
there.
definition of a dink is.
Hashtag
Yes.
But it's
ding.
not dual income without kids, which is a big thing right now.
Yeah.
Is that really?
Yeah.
Yes.
People have referred to Nick and I as
Wow.
dinks, and it reminds me of in the early it might have been the 90s. You guys remember the show Doug? Or are you
Yeah.
like, okay, I was like,
That's our theme song.
I sang that on the show once.
that's true, you did.
Yeah.
The next door neighbor, they're Mr. and Mrs. Dink. They don't have any kids.
Dinkelberg.
Dinkelberg.
Also, childless.
Yes, exactly.
Whoa. Yeah, I
Double
didn't even know
income,
that
no
was- yeah.
kids. And people have called Nick and I dinks. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, double income, no kids. And I'm like,
Damn. I thought we were talking about penises.
We are.
Okay.
We are talking about
No, we're talking about
penises.
the ink that sprays on you in the
When you
stall
try to
if
look
you
at
try to
someone's
look at
spit.
someone's penis.
Trademarked. That's a product we're working on,
Yeah,
guys.
yeah.
No one take that.
TM.
Yeah, unless there's like a justified thing where I'm able to sit and say like, oh, that person actually, is
Like
not
on a
being
moral standpoint. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Otherwise, no. There's no choosing sides. There's no
Yes.
like, oh, well, I don't like them, so you can. Then I'm gonna start actually questioning your behavior.
Yes,
now
exactly.
we're having
Yeah,
this
if you
conversation.
become possessive over people, that to me is a little bit of like
It's
a red
crazy.
flag.
Yeah.
Because then I'm like, oh, okay, so you're like taking stock of like the people around you because now it's a battle.
Yes.
It's not about the
Yes.
fact that you care
It's
about
the
my friendship
pawning.
and you're like, this person might hurt you
I
in
wanna
some
win.
way. Yeah, it's literally, I don't want them to have anything.
Yes.
And that
Yeah.
starts to really make me question, like, do I want to be friends with
Especially
somebody
if it
like
was
that?
even like an amicable breakup and you're like you're pulling things from them that they might need at this time. They might need that support because
Yeah.
I'm their friend or whatever. Second question. Have you guys ever ghosted a friend?
I don't.
Or even someone that you were like, hey, this person's really cool. I'm like, we're going to attempt to hang out and then being like, oh no, that was not what I thought it was.
I don't know if I've ever had like, I feel like I've had maybe like 2 or 3 times where I would say ghosted friends where like they crossed a boundary and it was actually something where I think both times it was like a guy that I was friends with that probably like crossed a line.
Yeah.
And I was either in a relationship or just like thrown back by
Uncomfortable
it. And
by
I
it,
was
yeah.
just like, I'm not gonna deal with this. So I just like blocked them or deleted them off of stuff to a point where I was like, we're not even going to continue having a conversation or like anything after this, because whether it was a boundary for my relationship or my personal boundary, like that was like apparently crossed in a way, and it was like very like I didn't have to say anything,
Yeah.
or at least I didn't think I had to say anything to be like, okay, this was not
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I'm sure that that's happened, but I feel like most cases that I can think of are like it was there, and then like rather than just like it's there one day, gone the next, it just sort of like gradually
Yeah.
dissipated to like, oh, we haven't talked in a couple weeks, and I don't know, maybe we'll talk in a couple months, and oh, okay, we're not like, I can't really think of a scenario.
Well, have you ever like even like soft ghosted? Like there are people that have given me the ick based on like their morals or whatever, or how they've treated me, and I'm a very like passive person, so I will slowly start to step back, and if they don't get the hint, then I'll keep stepping back until like you're not getting texts back or
okay.
anything like that. Not like
Sure.
straight up blocked.
Yeah, because I also like, even us talking about all these boundaries and everything, I also don't think that there has to be like,
Bless you.
Thank you. I tried so hard. I was trying to curb it. Okay, sorry. Go on.
I also don't think that there has to be like necessarily like every time there like needs to be a boundary set or something talked about or whatever. I will also say that not everything has to be a big dramatic.
Yeah, sometimes
talk
and
from a
sometimes if
movie
it's
of,
not
like-
like this huge friendship, it's like this new beginning thing, and I'm like, oh, I guess I really didn't know who you are, and I'm not really interested in what
Yeah.
you're bringing to the table.
Because I've definitely done that where it's like you meet somebody, you're getting to know them better or whatever it may be, and they're just sort of like, you kind of get that feeling or the vibe where you're like, all right, maybe we're not really meshing the way, and maybe you're not the person I thought you were, whatever. Cool, I'm gonna, then maybe fade away, like soft ghost away or
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. Because at that point, there's not a lot riding on that,
You
and it's
can't
not
start
my.
talking. You can't be like, hey, I know we just met, but we got to talk about your morals.
Hey, I'd really like to talk about how you act. So if I could dissect it, everything for a second, like then that's weird, and
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
you're overstepping a boundary that's not even. Then you're just being weird to them, whether or not you feel like you're justified because they're, they've got you're getting the ick from them or you're getting the whatever. Well, that ultimately doesn't matter because there's not actually something that's prompting.
Yeah, there's not.
It's just
a foundation.
no, it's a feeling that you're getting, which is fine. All you have to do is identify that and say, okay, maybe I'm not going to feed into this as much as I maybe thought. Now, if it continues and they are crossing boundaries to you and they're like, why are we hanging out every week? What the hell?
You get a
Then-
restraining order.
You get a restraining order, absolutely. But it's like, then there's some boundaries that can very clearly be set up of like, hey, this isn't really going to work, or I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you don't need to just come out of nowhere and be like, hey, so when you said that one thing to me, it made me feel really weird. So I think we need to talk about your communication skills because I felt weird one time. It's like,
Yeah.
Now-
I always
now we're
hope
making
people are
something
kind
new.
of reading between the lines.
Yeah. So yeah, I think in that sense, if it's like a soft ghosting or something like that, then like, sure. Yeah.
And that's me being nice. If I'm soft ghosting someone, that is the nicest I can be because I'm not, again, you can't like start bombarding them about like what you didn't like. It's just like, okay, that's your business and I don't want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Now on the flip side of ghosting people, how do you keep your important relationships afloat?
Yeah. I actually love this point because this is something that I have tried to be pretty consistent on in the last like 2 years of like making myself make conscious efforts to check in with friends to make sure I'm keeping friendships afloat. So like a lot of the times, usually I feel like I do it like every 2 or so months or something like that. I'll just take some time in a day and I'll just go through my contacts in my phone and I'll just text somebody that I haven't talked to in a while. And I'll just text them something nice. And I'll just be like, hey, just wanted to check in, say what's up. How are you doing? You know, blah, 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 whatever.
I never get those texts from Ross.
Because we talk almost every day.
Ross doesn't care about
All right,
how I'm
it's been 2
doing.
months.
Yeah. Hey, so I know we talked about a bunch of other stuff all the time, but you haven't sent me one of those friendship check-in tests. So do you even care? But like that is something that I've made a conscious effort to do because I'm like, okay, regardless of whether or not like there are people sometimes that I haven't talked to in 6 months or a year or something like that. I'm not going to go into it being like, well, they don't care about me. I'm going to be like, well, what can I do to keep this friendship afloat? What can I do to add something to this friendship? Even if that does not mean in 3 months they return the text to me, that's ultimately okay. Because again, I'm not going to set some imaginary boundary or get mad at them for something they didn't do just out of like, well, they're not a good friend because they never talked to me. We can put that on the list of like, hey, I can't identify this person does not ever reach out to me. But ultimately, then I make the decision of like, well, is this a person that I care to keep around? Because then, then maybe I'm not going to send that person a text, whatever it is. But it's like, that is a practice that I've like put into play over the last 2 years is every couple months or so, I will just go through, or sometimes even in DMs, I'm like, oh, well, who are some like people I mainly talk to on the internet that, we'll DM back and forth every once in a while, but like, I really want to actually check in. And literally every single time I do that and every single person, it always starts a fun, positive conversation.
Yeah.
And almost all of them are like their response is, wow, like I'm literally so thank you for checking in on me. This is so cool. I realize we haven't talked in a while. This is what I've been up to. What have you been up to? And then it just starts a conversation. So it's like, I'm giving like, I'm showing these people that's like, hey, we don't have to talk every day to still be friends. Doesn't mean that we're not friends. And also, I just wanted to check in on you. Just wanted to say what's up. We don't have to then text all day for the next 3 weeks and make plans to get lunch tomorrow.
Yeah.
We don't have to do that. It can be a relative, like the next 15 minutes we text back and forth and then it just sort of, we continue with our day and whatever. But I feel good knowing that like I showed that person that I care or that I added a tiny, tiny bit to a friendship.
That's usually enough for me. I'm like, that person's still my best friend.
Yeah. And I will say, even if it's more of an acquaintanceship, like there's, because for sure, plenty of people in my contacts, I would say, are more acquaintances than like real friends or anything like that. But I'll still send those texts and just like, just wanted to check in, say what, like I just wanted to say, hey.
Yeah.
And that I hope you're doing well. That's it. It's not, what's up, bro? By the way, do you have that connection to this person, to that thing, to that, like, because that's what I think a lot of people do tend to do is you only talk to somebody when you need something, which I think we noted that earlier. But that is, it's like that's at least one of the ways that I will keep friendships or acquaintanceships afloat as an adult because yes, life is happening very fast for all of us and it's very easy to go months without seeing each other or talking to each other even or whatever it may be. So I will make it a point every couple months to just take a day. I literally will like in my mind, I'm like, tomorrow is my check-in day. I'm like, I'm going to take like whatever downtime that I might have if I'm just chilling. I'm just going to text people because it's not just like, oh, I'm doing a good duty for my day. I literally feel better at the end of the day because I'm like, wow, I made that person feel more cared about, or I made them know that I was thinking of them, or it spawned a very fun conversation that does lead us to getting lunch, or it does lead us to whatever it may be. And it's like, that's more of the person or the friend or acquaintance. That's the type of person that I want to be, is like, even if we're not doing something, seeing each other all the time, or even talking all the time, I do want to be that person who's like, wow, Ross texts me like twice a year and checks in, and he doesn't want anything when he checks in, and that makes me feel good. Because
you're forgetting the part where you Venmo them and request $50 every time you text them.
Okay, that's getting edited out. What the why would you say that? Okay, yeah, Ross, when you're editing this in the future, remember this part right here. Edit that part out because no one can know the secret. Also, you know what? Venmo me $100 now for that.
Venmo me $100.
Did you just turn that around on me? Yes. I'm setting a boundary right now that friends cannot request money from me.
Well,
anymore.
I want money. I'm not in this,
You can get rocks.
Yeah,
Wow.
Rocks are your currency.
What if she's like, oh my God, thank you.
Every time she moves, we hear her jacket pockets clanking around with rocks in them.
And not even like the nice
They're just like the ones gravel.
Yes.
It's like, look at this.
Gravel. Look at my rocks.
Yeah, but aside from requesting Venmo payments and giving rocks, that would be one of the main ways that I keep friendships afloat. Is just by like checking in with myself and reminding myself, hey, do you care about this person? Do something about it. Like, and I think I've talked about this on the show before, but like I also follow a personal rule of like, when I think something nice about somebody, I tell them. Like, no matter what it is, and not like random, like something creepy, like you look nice today.
Look great.
Yeah. But like, if I'm like,
sorry, I had to say it.
Sorry, your boobs look really cool today. Anyway, just hope you have a good day. But it's like, if I'm scrolling through Instagram or something and I see like a photography friend like post a photo or whatever, I'm not just gonna be like, oh, dope, and keep scrolling.
Yeah.
I am going to take a second to be like, to send a message of like, yo, this is really cool. Maybe here's something I like about it. Or like, hey, I can see a lot of work went into this. It doesn't just have to be a creative thing either. And this might be silly, but like sometimes, I'll see somebody post on their story like that they finally cleaned their house. And if they've been putting it off for the last few weeks and they haven't been feeling great and whatever, I'll message them. And if I think like, wow, that's so cool. I do
that too.
I'm like, I'm going to tell them that I think that it's cool.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like another random thing that I tend to follow is like, if I think something nice, I try to say something nice rather than just holding it in for me. And because again, the tiniest of comments can turn someone's day around or keep them afloat for that day.
Yeah.
And again, that's the type of like relationships that I would like to have with people is whether it's like, wow, why is Ross saying fucking nice things all the time? He's kind of annoying. Too bad. I'm just
too bad.
Nope.
So sad. Your boobs look good.
Too bad. Your boobs look good. Take it as a fucking compliment. Oh my God, I'm friend zone. No.
What about
Don't
you,
do
Brittany?
that, folks.
I do that as well. I don't usually take a day, but if someone pops into my head that I haven't thought about for a couple months, I will tell them in that moment if I've got the time. I will text them and be like, hey, I'm thinking about you, whatever. My other big thing is, you guys know that I love to be home, and it's impossible for me to even have my own thought because of the two heathens that I have. But if I ever, even like once a year, make an effort to get you at my house or me to get somewhere, it takes a lot to do that. It takes childcare, it takes planning the day, all of the things. So I really try at least every couple months, I try to make sure that I've like seen all of my very important people within that time span. That sometimes is a very long time for some people, but for me, it's like 3 months feels like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I feel like, okay, I just saw them, even if I saw them at like the beginning of the year, but I make sure that I am able to like give them time physically if I can, if that's something that they want. I kind of is gauged by the person.
Show up to their house.
I'm like, I'm here. You're welcome.
Your boobs look great.
Your boobs look great.
I like that that's become the compliment.
I like your rocks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, what about you?
Things looking great.
I don't cultivate adult friendships. I'm really bad at. No, I feel like I'm sort of similar to Ross in the way of like, and to
you
Brittany
guys
as
are
well.
both really good at like social media and having like a meaningful presence on social media.
Well, and that's the thing is if I see something, like I won't really necessarily message somebody and be like, hey, sometimes I will if it seems like a personal thing. But like I'm right there congratulating people for sure. Like right, on the post where I see it. Otherwise I will forget. But a lot of what I think is like same thing, like think of somebody, like send them a message, just be like, hey, I was just thinking about you. Hope you're doing well, kind of a thing. I have a friend who like she and I are both like emotional girlies, and we're the kind of people that like have, you know, our ups and downs. But we're always very, very like great at communicating with each other. Like we've never really had like a hiccup in our friendship ever. And what I love that we do is we actually send each other stuff off Amazon just kind of randomly. So like it'll be something where like when Zima passed away, she sent me it was a little crocheted heart, and it's called a pocket hug. And she was like, oh yeah, you can just keep this in your pocket. And, you know, we live a little far apart, and, you know, if we're stressed out, like she sent me candles and like just like random little like gift things. Sometimes it's literally like a pillowcase that like has Nick Cage's face on it. Like sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's sweet. And, you know, we do that here and there, just like when we can tell the other is like going through something. Yeah. And so that's something that like I want to do that with so many more people. Like imagine just like having people like on your Amazon list where you just see something, you're scrolling and it's like, hey, this is like $12 and this is going to make their freaking day. Like, and it doesn't even have to be gifts. You know what I mean? Like I am like a physical, like I love letters. I love like those types of things. So I love giving those types of things. Like I keep all of my like birthday cards and stuff from Nick, and I love making things like that as well. So I feel like I love to put my like, I guess, friendship cultivation into like places where I feel like it's something where people can really feel the love from me.
Yes. There's a tangible thing kind of.
Yeah. And even if it is like you said, like I also am not super big on leaving my house. So like if I'm like, oh no, yeah, like Ross and I are going to go to this comedy show. Like that's me being like, I'm going to leave my house for Ross today.
That's love.
Yeah. So I'm like, those are the types of things like I need to be better personally about making those plans. Like I'm never the person that's like, hey, let's go do this thing. But I'm always the person that's like, yeah, I'll go. Like if I can make it, I will make it, because yeah, I feel like that's for sure. Like getting out of the house is difficult. And I think we can all agree with that. Like getting here for us to do this sometimes is difficult, but
yeah. Usually I'm good at getting out of the house, but I'm always like, hey, oh man, if these plans cancel, I'll be stoked. Like I love when plans get canceled, so I don't have to leave, but I also am like usually
Brittany
looking
said,
to
it's
leave.
the sexiest thing you can do.
It is. It really is.
Yes, canceling plans is 100% accurate. Yes, but yeah, I think it really does come down to a lot of those things of like keeping up communication, reaching out to somebody and saying something nice when there's not a prompt to do so. It's not just, oh, they posted that they're super depressed. Now I'll say something nice. Well, what if you said something nice regardless of that, right? Like, yes, still do that, obviously, right? If somebody's posting that they're having a bad time.
I'll wait till they're feeling better.
Yeah. You seem really, held down right now. I don't want to, I don't want to bother you.
I don't want to add anything to that, so I don't want to say anything good. No, but it's, not waiting for those big bad moments of like, okay, now I'll be there for somebody. Or on the flip side, like the reason that I tried to even start reaching out to people and saying nice things or telling them that I'm thinking of them was for a handful of years, like years ago, I would find that often there were people that I would only talk to when I needed something. Like in the creative world, especially, right? When I like needed like, hey, do you know so-and-so for this thing? Or, hey, where did you get that thing? Or like, again, centering around a lot of like the creative work, but like, I would identify that and I was like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
This is not...
It feels transactional. It doesn't feel like friendship. It feels like you said, acquaintanceship, but more so in a way of like, oh, they're not getting anything out of this. And I'm literally reaching out of my bubble into their bubble to ask for something that they have that I want.
Yeah. And so at some point in time, like before I really, again, started making a conscious effort to like, I just want to check in and keep all friendships afloat, however, well that I can. There were times where like if I did need to ask a favor of somebody, I wouldn't, because I was like, this is unfair because I haven't talked to them in 8 months.
Yeah.
So then I wouldn't even ask so then I put it, you know what I mean? So then it's like, oh, I don't want this to be a transaction.
I'm going another 6 months.
Even if they don't care, right?
Yeah.
Even if they were like, dude, yeah, absolutely. Here's that connection you asked for. Here's that thing or whatever it is. They might not care, but I could identify that's not the type of friend I wanted to be, was only a transactional one. So then I was like, I guess no, I'm not going to ask them for that. But what that then turned into is, well, wait, what if I actually just communicated with people a little more often, keeping friendships afloat a little bit more often? And then a lot of the times too, I do take it, like I try to take that extra step of, I am the person who's like, let's go get coffee or let's go get food. Yeah. Let's go hang out and just chat for a couple hours or whatever. Like there's several friendships that I would say are pretty close friendships, but we only actually hang out maybe one, like, I don't know, 3 times a year or something like that.
Sure.
Right? Where it's like we go get coffee or food and we talk for 4 hours. And
Yeah.
then I'm like, cool, this strong bond is still here.
Yeah.
And we'll keep up on Instagram and text every once in a while, but we're not talking every day. We're not hanging out every week. And so it's like, I still think healthy friendships can be healthy without
absolutely.
having to see each
For
other
sure.
talk every single day. Because again, life is happening.
Yeah, it's what
for
you do
everybody.
with the time when you are giving that person like that one-on-one time or whatever.
Quality over
yeah.
quantity. Yeah.
There's always going to be those friendships that feel like they are always being kept up, even if it's been like months since we've talked and we get
And the
together
security.
and it feels
like you just know that's your friend. They're not going anywhere because you haven't texted them in a couple weeks.
It's comfy when you just know each other well enough to be like, hey, like, let's just get together and have like that 4-hour like coffee session where we just like get all of it out, and then, you know, like, yeah, like exchange texts here and there, but like it doesn't feel like homework sort of a thing.
My
Yeah.
favorite friends are the ones that I don't have to worry about being mad at me if they don't hear from me for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because I know that they know that it's never my intention to like not be talking to them or whatever, and that things will just be like normal and as if I just saw them 10 minutes ago once we get together.
And I feel like as you get older, there's more of that. Like
Yeah.
people become so much more understanding as we get older. I think it was like being younger, people were a lot more demanding of our time because it was like, I don't know, a different time. Like you didn't have maybe as serious of like commitments in your life where, you know, now it's like you've got kids or you've got like a business to run or there's things just going on in your life where like people can look at it objectively from the outside and be like, oh, she's probably working. Like
Yeah.
I talk to my sister like once every maybe couple of weeks when she texts me back because she is like, she's got 3 kids with special needs and she is like out there being super mom, working, you know, she's got all this stuff. So like when I get a text back from her, I'm like, oh great. Okay. Like I'm hearing from my sister. But when I'm not getting a text back from her, I'm like, bless her heart. She is
Yeah.
like running around with, you know, what she's on fumes, basically, like what she's got trying to make all this stuff happen. I'm not sitting there going, well, why haven't you texted me back?
Yeah.
Like that's really fucked up of you. Like,
Yeah. And it's like, it's being able to identify those things. Like there is a balance to all of that because it's like
Yeah.
when you can identify, like if Brittany and I don't text for, like if we're not doing this show or something and we don't happen to text for like a month or something, there's no part of me that's like, wow, Brittany doesn't care.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, lots of life happens for Brittany.
Because
And
then you come over and you're at my house for like 7 days straight.
yes, because then I just go and I live there for a couple days and then I'm like, all right, cool, I'll see you in a couple months. But it's like knowing those boundaries, knowing the communication, it's easy. Like there's no part of me that is going to sit and be like, wow, why haven't we talked? Because we did also mention earlier, like that people do become guilty of, wow, if I don't, like I want to see what happens when I don't text this friend. How long until they text me? So there is a side to both of it, right? But
Yeah.
it's like when you can identify
I
where
think-
that's coming from of
Yeah.
like, oh, I know my sister is up to this. I know
Yeah.
Brittany is up to this. I know
And-
my friend is doing this.
and not to
I'm
say
not
that
worried
like
about it.
there are people that like I could that it's essentially like in the situation where I was talking about it earlier of like I've stopped reaching out because there are people like I know they've got stuff going on and so do I, but if I've reached out the past 5 or 6 times
Exactly.
and like nobody's like returning that to me like at least once in a while, like, and I'm talking 5 or 6 times like over the course of like a year and a half, you know what I mean? Like I'm reaching out every single time.
You've got your answer at that point.
And then at that point I can also accept that I can be like, we used to maybe be closer than we are and now things are changed and that's okay.
Yeah, because
Yep.
it could not even be malintent. It could just be like their life's going in a different direction.
And then it's like, you know, if we see each other like once in a blue moon, it's not like I'm
you're
sitting
not
there
going to
like
sword fight about it.
No, exactly. It's gonna be fine. You're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
You know, I just have learned like as far as that like boundary goes for me, like if they're not pouring into me, I'm not pouring into them. It doesn't mean that when we see each other, we can't like have an amicable like relationship or like, you know, shoot the shit, whatever. But
Yeah.
like, it just means like on my day to day, like that is not going to be necessarily the person that I'm like reaching out to like, hey, do you want to go do this with me? Because I know what the answer is basically.
Yeah.
Yep. 100%. So let's talk about when that communication does go south and there is a conflict that we have to talk about. We have to have this because we mentioned them earlier. We kind of touched on this a little bit of
fizzle away.
Pretty much.
I'm like, nope, this ain't for me.
So yeah, let's talk about how to, like, as adults,
Yeah.
how you would either like to, how you do, how you've had to learn, like, how do we manage conflict in adult friendships? Because in a way that can also keep them afloat, or realize that you just need to sever the tie, and that's it, there's a decision to make there. But like, I mean, for me, the simple answer is like, just actually communicate it. Like that, I almost think would be the difference in, like, being a child or being an adult. Is like, yes, children we will just say our feelings and we don't know what those filters are and all that sort of stuff, but they don't have any, there's not a lot of like intent behind it. Something, you know what I mean? It's just like, that made me mad. And it's like, I don't know if I know why that made me mad, but I'm just feeling it and I just know how to express it. Whereas an adult, we know what makes us mad. We know what makes us happy. We know all these sort of things. So it's like, it's up to us to take that responsibility to then communicate that with other people. And I do think that, like, conflict doesn't necessarily have to be a super negative
I feel like if you're vulnerable, which is not a bad thing, like vulnerability has such a like negative connotation to it for some reason, but I feel like not only just communicating openly, but being vulnerable enough to do that, like to be like in touch with your inner child of being like, hey, no, yeah, like that hurt my feelings, instead of being like, oh, they're gonna think that I'm too soft if I say that this hurt my feelings. Like you don't have to make excuses for anybody. Like if something bothers you, and don't wait. You know what I mean? Like, I think the open communication, the vulnerability, and then on top of that, just honesty. Like, and especially like if I ask you, like, is something bothering you? Like, this is something I have noticed in relationships, especially like my marriage. Like sometimes Nick will be mad about something and I'll just go, well, what's wrong? And he goes, nothing, everything's fine. And I'm like, okay, we'll just play by your rules. And in a couple of hours when you boil over and you blow up, we'll talk about it. And then he kind of laughs and he's like, okay, it bothered me that you said this. And then we can actually like just sit down and break it apart. Because when you really like break down, like, why do you not want to be vulnerable about this when clearly you're upset? Those are the kinds of things where I'm like, as long as we're being open, honest, and like communicating in a way that is vulnerable, I feel like you can resolve any conflict with any person if you're both willing to like meet in the middle in that way.
Yeah, I think that is the key thing, is that like you both have to be on the same page about wanting to come to an agreement and move past the thing. Because a lot of the time when I think of conflict, because conflict can be resolved, but in my head, conflict starts when we've had the conversation and we're still not on the same page. And that is when I'm upset and things will get ugly.
That's true, because when you first bring it up, it might not necessarily be a conflict. It might just be like a, hey, this thing is bothering me. But yeah, when it's like a repeat offense and you're kind of like, hey, we've been through this actually. And it's sometimes hard for people to change, you know, whether it's something that they do, like a way that they act or something. And there's like, you know, I can grant a little bit of grace here and there. But I do think that like, yeah, if it's something where somebody is being like, especially if they know it bothers you and they're like maybe mad at you for something and then they start doing that thing, like that's, I feel like when it comes to like resulting a conflict in that way, like, that's where I feel like I cut the ties, is if I'm like, okay, if we can't like get past the fact that like, you know, that this bothers me and you're doing
accountability.
Yeah, that's definitely like such a huge part of it too.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, I think the ultimate thing is just like, it is just communicating. It's not like holding it in and being like secretly mad at somebody or secretly upset, or also wanting people to read, like, we can't read each other's minds. Like Brittany said this earlier, like we can't all read each other's minds. And also,
well, you guys can't.
Well, yeah, obviously.
The rock girl can.
Why do you think I have so many rocks?
Yeah, that's how she reads them. She like shakes them. And then,
I shake them and I throw them on the table. I'm like, ah.
You throw them in someone's face and she's like, I bet that hurt. And I'm like, yeah, it did. I can read your mind. But I think that's the easy answer, right? It's like it all centers around communication, and that's almost too easy to say. But amazingly, a lot of people just don't do that.
Yeah.
And also realizing that when you are having that like conflict or that argument or the disagreement or whatever, again, we can't read each other's minds, so we don't always know what each other are thinking or feeling, and we can't project our wants and needs and feelings on somebody else, just assuming, well, if I bring this up, you'll understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they won't because they're also coming from a different place. So you also have to go into it. It's literally like the 50-50 thing that we've been talking about this whole time. Is like, cool, I can give you my side and my understanding.
Yeah.
But I'm also going to understand that you have your side and your understanding.
But my side is correct.
But my side is correct and you're wrong. So we won't be talking
Get your shit
anymore.
together, or I
So-
will ghost you.
Yeah, I will ghost you either gradually or instantly, and I will not send you nice DMs on Instagram.
Or
Perfect.
things on Amazon.
I won't send you Amazon lists anymore. Any closing thing? Because I feel like there's, I don't know, like we've also probably talked about that in other episodes, but it's like I don't know how much more we
No,
can
we're just
say
kind of
on
wrapping a bow around a lot of episodes in this episode.
like kinda yeah because I mean obviously yes, a lot of what we've talked about in other episodes is like, oh, being an adult is weird, and then being an adult and having friends and keeping up with people and doing things is weird, but it's like I think we talk about it so much because it is such an active problem for all of us and just everyone
And
in
it's
the
sometimes
world.
nice
Like,
to hear like other people say, I'm busy and it has nothing to do with you, because a lot of people
100%.
feel that way or are on the opposite side of that. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
us talking about it, even if we talk about it every other episode, it's still going to resonate with someone.
it's important to learn to not take everything personally.
Yeah.
Like not everything is about like we are
Oh,
the main
I'm
characters in
so-
our story,
I'm
but it's
so
like
bad at that.
we
I'm
are
like,
not-
oh, they didn't say it back.
it's difficult because
Yeah.
you do like you get in your feels a little bit where you're like, oh, that they didn't respond the way I hoped they did.
Oh, I'm
or, you know,
constantly
whatever.
like, oh, everyone hates me because I accidentally did this one. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like we all have to be able to like step outside of ourselves a little bit as adults. Like when you're a kid, it's me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so you're willing to be like, that hurt my feelings. That did this, that did that. But like, yeah, when you're an adult, I think it's about being able to like step back and look at like other people's situations and say, this is where they're coming from or what they're going through. So what I'm going through and where I'm coming from has to like somehow mesh with that in order for us to like, complete this circle.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Let's end this one like this. What is something that each of us think everyone, including us, we could all be doing to cultivate better friendships as adults?
You go first.
Mine would probably be stuff that I already said, but I think it's
He goes,
So I'm actually perfect. I was talking about you
Yeah,
two.
he goes, I want you guys to say more things that are better because I actually did a really great job.
no, it was because I didn't want to just keep making because mine's the same. So I was just like, and cool, I'll round it out. They hear new, fresh things, and then I'll just say. But my actual answer is just like try to slow down and check in a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think that's like the easiest, most foundational thing you can do to keep friendships going in any sort of way. Friendships, acquaintanceships, whatever it is. It's just like realize that like life is going 100 miles an hour for all of us and to not take everything personally, but also it's like it's okay to, you don't have to take everything personally, but you can also find a way to make things personal.
Yeah.
In like a positive way, right?
Yeah,
Of like,
yeah,
hey,
yeah.
I was thinking about you. Here's this thing off Amazon. Hey, I was thinking about you. I'm stoked that you did this thing or whatever it is. So I would say like slowing down and like just checking in a little bit more, like realizing that like ultimately, yes, life is happening for all of us, but I also will be honest and say that I don't think it's that hard.
Yeah.
Truly
Wait till you have kids.
that hard to keep up.
And then we
with
will
people.
talk. Because I'm texting you and then someone's grabbing my phone and watching Spidey and Friends when you're trying to text me back. You could be like,
But-
help, I'm drowning. And Spidey and Friends, sorry.
But I would also say that we have a good friendship
Yeah, I agree.
regardless. So then, yeah.
So
then it's not a
it just
difficult
goes
friendship.
to, yeah.
no,
so
and it is true.
You're doing fine.
Again, I've already said I do the same thing. So it does take sometimes sitting down and being like, if I care about these people, I have to let them know at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's if you care, then it doesn't become ultimately that
Yeah.
difficult of like figuring out again the answer to, well, it's not that difficult does not mean okay, then we're talking every day and we're hanging out every week.
Also, and
Nope.
this
Like-
is something we didn't talk about. If it kind of feels like a chore to reach out to someone, you should look at your relationship with them and
Mm-hmm.
what you want it to be. Do you need to step back a little bit and make it more of an acquaintance thing? Because that can really that can put a bad taste in your mouth if you're like, I got to reach out to this person again just so they're not feeling like I hate them because it's going to be this big thing. You might need to put that energy into someone else that you care about or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there might need some boundaries to be put up with that. Yeah.
Something that you can do to show people that you care. Send them rocks,
You don't even have to Amazon them. You can just go to
Just-
your driveway.
Just
Rocks
give
are
them
free,
some rocks.
guys.
You find a really cool rock, give it to your friend. Like that's like the basis. I mean, that's little kid friendship. You're like, look at this cool rock, you can have it.
Wow. incredible.
That's selflessness.
Yes. Be a little more selfless. I guess
Yeah.
that's what we're all kind of saying is like, yeah, don't be like so caught up in your own life that you forget that there are other people that care about you and are wanting to hear from you, or, you know, are wanting the best for you and stuff.
Yeah.
And if you truly care about them and want the best for them and stuff as well, just be more open about that and communicate it and say it more often, and like without prompt, like you said. Like, I think like a lot of it is like, don't wait for somebody to be struggling. Like, don't wait for like something to pop up for you to need something, and then you're like, oh my gosh, like I really value you, because then it doesn't feel genuine. So be a genuine friend by, without prompt or reason, caring about others. Give them rocks.
Yeah, and tell them their boobs look nice.
Yeah.
Yes, give them rocks.
Give their boobs rocks.
Tell them their rocks look nice. All right, I'm hitting that button.